Welcome to the Killer Innovation Show, the longest continuously produced podcast in history. Each week, Phil McKinney brings you the insights and strategies to amplify your creativity and innovation skills. Here's your host, Phil McKinney.
In 2007, two designers were struggling to pay rent in San Francisco. Can you imagine that? Had a seemingly simple thought. What if people could rent out their spare rooms to travelers? This question, was posed by Brian Chesky and Joe Gebe, sparked what would become Airbnb, a company now valued at about over $100 billion that has fundamentally reshaped how millions of people travel. The power of their question wasn't just in identifying a market gap. It challenged fundamental assumptions about hospitality, property use, and trust between strangers. It wasn't just incremental, it was transformative. And here lies that innovation paradox that most, if not 95%, of all organizations face today. Companies invest heavily in expertise and in data and answers, yet rarely invest in improving the quality of their questions. They hire specialists who know the current state of the art, but who don't necessarily know how to question it. They gather mountains of data, but ask the same question of it that all the competitors do. They reward employees who provide answers, not those who challenge the assumptions with powerful questions. This explains why true breakthroughs remain rare. The uncomfortable truth is that the quality of your innovation is directly proportional to the quality of the questions you're asking. Transformative innovations don't come from having slightly better answers to the same questions that everybody else is asking. They come from asking entirely different questions altogether. So, in today's episode, we're going to talk about the 5 specific questioning techniques that have demonstrated to breakthrough innovations across industries. Now, these aren't generic, think outside the box prompts, but precise question formulations with clear applications and proven results. If you can master these, you will have the keys to unlocking innovation possibilities that others don't even see. But before diving into the specific questioning techniques, it's worth understanding why questions, rather than answers, drive innovation so powerfully. Neurologically, questioning activates a different brain pathway than analytical thinking. When we search for answers, we typically engage in convergent thinking, narrowing possibilities until we arrive at what seems optimal. This activates primarily the brain's prefrontal cortex, the region associated with logical reasoning and decision making. But when we ask open questions, particularly those that challenge assumptions, we activate regions associated with divergent thinking and novel connections. According to research from the Center for Neural Decision Making at Temple University, individuals who regularly engage in questioning and curiosity-driven thinking show greater activation in areas associated with insight and creative problem solving. This neurological difference has led to innovation organizations to replace traditional brainstorming, which, we have to be honest, often produces incremental ideas at best, with what leading innovation facilitators call question storming. In these sessions, participants generate only questions about a challenge, focusing on quantity and provocativeness rather than immediate answers. Do you challenge the way everybody's thinking? Now, data supports this approach. A McKinsey study of over 300 companies found that those with formalized questioning methodologies in their innovation processes outperformed their industry peers by an average of 34% in innovation output as it was measured by successful new products and services that actually made it into market. Even more compelling, it's research from Harvard Business School professor Amy Edmondson, which demonstrates that teams that regularly engage in question-based inquiry rather than assertion-based advocacy, my idea is the best idea, show significantly higher rates of breakthrough thinking and successful innovation implementation. Now, the science is clear. Better questions create better innovations. And if you're a longtime listener, I'm sure you're just absolutely shocked by this, given my book and all of my work on the use of questions. But let's take a deeper dive. Let's examine the 5 specific questions that have demonstrated the power to really unlock breakthrough thinking. Question number 1, constraint flipping question. Now, the formula here is what if this limitation was actually an advantage? We tend to look at limitations or constraints as a negative. Most innovators instinctively fight against constraints, such as limited budget, so try to get more funding, or restrictive regulation, look for loopholes, legacy technology, plan a complete overhaul. But true innovators know that constraints, reframed through the right question, can become a catalyst for breakthrough thinking. Let's consider Southwest Airlines. When Southwest Airlines was launching in the 1970s, the company faced a severe financial constraint that limited them to purchasing only one type of aircraft, the Boeing 737. Rather than viewing this as a disadvantage, its founder, Herb Keeler, asked, what if having only one type of aircraft wasn't a constraint, but we could turn it into an advantage? This question led to a cascade of innovations. The airline developed an unparalleled expertise in maintaining and operating that specific aircraft. They simplified crew training, since every pilot and every flight crew could be on any plane because they were familiar with it. They streamlined parts inventory and maintenance processes, and they created a model for rapid turnaround at the gates, since every plane had identical configurations. The result? Southwest became one of the most consistently profitable airlines in an industry where competitors regularly went bankrupt. So how do you apply this? To apply a constraint flipping question in your particular context, first off, identify your most frustrating constraint. List the limitations you believe are holding back innovation. Budget restrictions, regulatory requirements, technology limitations, whatever it is. For each constraint, explicitly ask, what if this limitation is actually an advantage? How might it force us to innovate in ways we would not have otherwise considered? Now, generate at least 7 possibilities for how this constraint could drive rather than inhibit innovation. Next, 4, develop the most promising responses into concrete innovation concepts. So what's your implementation exercise? What would this look like? With your team, identify your 3 most significant constraints. For each, complete this sentence. This limitation could become our greatest innovation advantage if we blank, fill that in. Herb's answer was, this limitation would become our greatest innovation advantage if we built our entire operational model at Southwest around mastering one aircraft type rather than offering variety. So what is that one constraint that could become your big innovation breakthrough that stands out against all of your competitors? Question 2, cross-industry inspiration questions. The formula here is how has another entirely unrelated industry solved a similar problem? Industries develop their own orthodoxies and blind spots. Look, fortunately, I've been across multiple industries and have been able to take advantage of that perspective But I've been in the consumer electronics industry for over a decade. I've been in the broadband telecom industry for probably 30 years of my career. You create blind spots. So, what seems innovative within one sector might be standard practice in something that's completely different. The cross industry inspiration question breaks through these silos by forcing connections between seemingly unrelated domains. One of the most powerful examples comes from healthcare. In 2005, the Great Ormond Street Hospital in London was struggling with patient handoffs between surgery and intensive care, a critical moment when communication failures regularly led to could be severe complications. Instead of looking to other hospitals for solutions, someone asked the revolutionary question: who else handles high stakes handoffs with precision and speed? Who do you think? The answer came from an unexpected source: Formula One racing pit crews. The hospital sent a team to observe Ferrari's pit stops, where 20 people performed a complex ballet, sequential tasks in order to change and get the car back out on the racetrack, all within 7 seconds. This cross-industry inspiration led to the development of a new handoff protocols that reduced technical errors by over 40% and information handoff admissions by nearly 50%. So how do you apply this? To apply cross-industry inspiration effectively, one is abstract your challenge to its fundamental pattern. Rather than how do we improve patient handoffs, ask how do we execute complex, time-critical processes with minimal error. Think deeply about this. 2, identify industries that excel at the fundamental pattern, even if they seem completely unrelated to your field. 3, study those industries' approaches. Look for transferable principles rather than service level practices. 4, adapt and test the principles in your context, modifying as needed for your specific constraints. So, how would you implement? In this case, for your current innovation challenge, complete this statement. At its core, we are really trying to solve the problem of, describe it, whatever that is, describe it. Then identify 3 completely unrelated industries that might excel at solving that core problem. For each of those 3, research their approaches and identify at least one principle you could adapt to your context. The third of the 5 questions we're going to cover is the first principles question. Now, the formula here is, what would you do if we started completely from scratch, ignoring all previous precedent of our industry? Now, most innovation is built on existing foundations, iterating on what came before. So therefore, we tend to move it as increments. But the most disruptive innovations come from challenging fundamental assumptions and rethinking problems from the first principles. Now, I have covered first principles many times, both as a standalone topic, but also in the context of the episode that I did on Elon Musk. Elon famously applied questioning this approach to his space technology at SpaceX. When he was starting SpaceX, conventional wisdom held that rockets were really expensive, with costs running into hundreds of millions of dollars each. But rather than accepting this, Musk asked, what would rocket design look like if we started completely from scratch, questioning every assumption? This led his team to break down rockets into their basic components and reconsider each one. What they found was that the raw materials for rockets cost only about 2% of the typical price of a rocket. This insight drove them to vertically integrate production, building components in-house rather than purchasing them from the traditional, very expensive aerospace suppliers with 100-year-old designs. The result was the development of rockets at roughly 1/10 the cost of traditional designs, fundamentally changing the economics of space access. So, how do you apply this? To apply first principle question, 1, list all the assumptions in your current approach. What do you take for granted how things must work? 2, challenge each assumption by asking, why must this be true? And what would happen if the opposite were true? 3, break down the problem to its fundamental elements. What are the irreducible components or factors? And 4, rebuild your approach based on those elements that you really can't change, and then ignoring precedent and tradition and come at it completely differently. So, how would you implement this? For your next innovation challenge, hold a first principles session where you list all the assumptions of how your product, service, or process must work. Second step, explicitly challenge each one with the question of, what if this wasn't true? 3, identify the 3 assumptions that, if challenged, would dramatically change your approach. And then go after and test them. 4 of the 5 questions we're going to talk about today, the extreme user question. The formula here is what would delight our most demanding users so much they couldn't imagine going back to the way it was? Average users give you feedback for incremental improvements. Make it blue, make it lighter, make the battery last longer. I've heard them all. Extreme users, those with the most demanding needs, unusual use cases, or challenging context, can point the way to breakthrough innovations. Apple's development of voice-activated technology provides a really compelling example. While voice control is now mainstream, its origins lie partly in designing for users with disabilities. By asking what would create a transformative experience for those who cannot use traditional interfaces, Apple developed technologies that eventually evolved into Siri and voice control features that millions of people now use daily. Similar, OXO built a kitchen tool empire by focusing first on users with arthritis and other grip limitations. The question, what would make tools usable for people with the most limited grip strength, led to innovations in handle design that turned out to create better experiences for everyone. So, how would you apply this? 1, identify your extreme users. Do you know who your really extreme users are? Go find them. This might be power users who push your product to its limits, users in challenging contexts such as extreme clients, resource limited setups, users with special needs, or even non-users who have rejected your category entirely. In one case, in an example from HP, we went and found extreme users in India who were constantly frying out their network cards in their laptops and in their desktops. Why? Because they were sharing network connections, throwing network cables across tin roofs that would get struck by lightning. We ended up modifying the design of the network cards to withstand lightning strikes. The end result was everybody else in the rest of the world got better product, more reliable product, because in this case, it was an extreme user in an extreme environment. But the second step of this is you identify them. 2 is study them intensely through interviews, observation, and collaborative design. 3, ask explicitly what would transform your experience so dramatically you could not imagine going back to the current approach. And then 4, test whether solutions for extreme users reveal unmet needs for your mainstream. Taking a lightning strike directly on your network card improved reliability for the 40 million laptops HP sells on a worldwide basis. So, how would you implement this? Select 3 extreme user categories for your product or service. For each, arrange to interview or observe at least 2 users in that category. This is not about assigning it to market research. This is you getting your butt out of the chair and going and talking to 2 users in that category. Focus on understanding their workarounds, their frustrations, and ideal scenarios. Then ask what features would make this so perfect for them they would become evangelists for your solution. Do that. Turn them into raving fans. Turn them into being evangelists. Question number 5, the counterintuitive question. The formula here is what if the opposite of our current approach were true? Our mental models and industry conventions often limit our thinking in the ways we don't even recognize. The counterintuitive question deliberately inverts these models to reveal new possibilities. Netflix revolutionized talent management by asking precisely this type of question. While most companies aim to build controls to minimize the damage that could be caused by disengaged employees, by creating detailed procedures and approval hierarchies and expense limits, Netflix asked, what if we did the opposite? What if we maximized freedom instead of minimizing abuse? This led to their famous freedom and responsibility culture, which eliminated vacation tracking, expense approval processes, and rigid reporting structures. The counterintuitive approach helped Netflix attract exceptional talent and build a culture of high performance and innovation that supported their transformation from being DVD delivery focused to being a streaming pioneer. So, how would you apply this? First off, identify your organization's core practices or beliefs about how to approach your market, product development, your operations, your HR procedures, whatever it is. What is your core practices or beliefs? For each practice or belief, ask, what if the opposite approach is actually more effective? What would that look like? Explore the inverted approach thoroughly before dismissing it, looking for elements that challenge your assumption constructively. 4, test a small case inversion to see if they yield unexpected benefits. At Cable Labs, we have an unlimited vacation policy. We have unlimited sick days. We have unlimited family leave days. But when we first started down that path, people were skeptical. We tried a few things just to see how it was going to work. But taking off that overhead of needing to track your hours and track your time off and all of the things that come along with it, and knowing that the employees are known that they're trusted to make the right decision, but they can prioritize what they need to get done, and at the same time, what's important for them personally and for their family. It was transformative. Interestingly enough, it took us 2 years to figure out how to implement that because the state laws don't like you doing unlimited vacation, particularly if you have hourly employees. It was a complex exercise like you would not believe. But we implemented it and it worked. So, in your case, how would you implement it? List 3 of the most firmly held beliefs about how things work, whether it's in your industry or in your organization. For each one, complete the sentence. What if the opposite were true? If so, we would do what? If so, our people would feel what? Right? Then identify one small scale experiment you can run to test elements of this inverted approach. And I would encourage you, do the test. Do the test. You'll learn a lot, but you will get yourself, because you'll have your own self-doubts on these things. It'll reinforce in your own mind, yes, this is the right path for us. Now, these 5 questions are most powerful when used systematically rather than in isolation. So, the innovation question cascade, which is what we're going to talk about here, provides a framework for sequencing these questions within your innovation process. Start with first principles question to clear away limiting assumptions and establish a blank slate of possibilities. So start first out of the gate with first principle thinking. 2, apply the extreme user question to identify meaningful problems worth solving and generate initial solution concepts. 3rd, explore the cross-industry inspiration question to bring in novel approaches from unrelated domains. The 4th, use the constraint flipping question to turn limitations into advantages in your emerging concepts. And then 5, finish with counterintuitive question to check whether inversions of your approach might yield even better results. This cascade can be and should be embedded into your existing innovation process through question-centered workshops where each phase focuses on one of these questioning techniques. Innovation teams can be trained to facilitate these sessions in capturing the insights they generate. Now, common obstacle to implementing a questioning approach includes impatience for answers, especially among senior leaders. Trust me on this one. I'm even sometimes still guilty of this, and I'm supposed to be the innovation guy. We always are looking for the answers to move on. So one of the biggest approaches is this impatience. The other is cultural norms that reward quick solutions over really thoughtful inquiry, and the cognitive discomfort that comes with leaving questions open. Nobody likes to leave a question open. They want to resolve to an answer, particularly if you're in the tech industry and you have a bunch of really smart engineers. They don't like having unanswered questions. Now, to overcome these obstacles, start small. Introduce one questioning technique in a low stakes kind of context. Demonstrate its value and then gradually expand. Point out, prove to your senior leadership team the power of questions. Create explicit permission for question time, where the pursuit of the answer is temporarily suspended. That's why question storming sessions are really, really powerful. For your first week, try this simple practice plan. On day 1, ask the first principles question about one aspect of your work. On day 3, apply the constraint flipping question to a certain limitation you've identified. And on day 5, experiment with counterintuitive question in a team discussion and keep going and keep practicing. Now, how do you know if better questioning is actually improving your innovation outcomes? A lot of people don't think you can't measure innovation. That is 100% false. The key is to track both process measures, such as how questioning is changing your approach, and outcome measures, how those changes affect results. And you can measure both. Process measures might include question diversity, the number of different question types raised in innovation discussions. Assumption identification, the number of previously hidden assumptions that get surfaced. Or exploration breadth, the number of distinct solution approaches considered. Now, what about outcome measures? Outcome measures could include innovation novelty, the degree of departure from existing approaches, the implementation success, percentage of innovations that achieved desired results, or time to breakthrough, how quickly fundamental insights emerge. So organizations like IDEO and Google Ventures actively measure question effectiveness in their innovation process. IDEO, for example, tracks how might we questions generated during design thinking sessions, analyzing their characteristics against ultimate project outcomes. A simple assessment tool for evaluating your team's current questioning patterns is the question quotient. The question quotient framework is: 1 is record a typical innovation meeting. Even if you're in a conference room and you're not doing it by Zoom call, turn on Zoom, turn on record. 2 is count the ratio of questions to statements. So go back, watch the recording. 3, analyze what percentage of questions changed assumptions versus merely seeking information. And 4, track how those metrics change as you implement the questioning techniques outlined above. Now, here's an idea I want to give you, and that is this, what I just talked through, the question quotient framework, this is an opportunity to test an AI tool to transcribe the meeting. Take your Zoom does recording and transcriptions through AI tools. You've got any other tools outside, you can use those. Transcribe and then extract the question quotient metrics for your innovation. AI would be very good at list out all the questions raised during the session, categorize those questions and count them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you can create an AI tool environment that you use in all of your ideation and all your innovation meetings to then see, are we improving the use of questions? Are we asking more questions? Are we asking for better questions? How do we maybe prompt meetings for question times, those kinds of things? You need to have a baseline. So just record your current meetings and then measure as you push, prod, and try to encourage more and better questions. So let's return to the Airbnb story. There's a fascinating detail typically overlooked. Before their breakthrough question about renting spare rooms, the founders had been pursuing a completely different business model focused on roommate matching. It wasn't superior market knowledge or technical expertise that led to their breakthrough. It was their willingness to question fundamental assumptions about how the hospitality industry should or could work. This pattern repeats across innovation history. The transformative power of question has been a hidden force behind countless breakthroughs, from Netflix reinvention of video distribution to Toyota's reinvention of manufacturing, with the simple question of, why do we need inventory? Before we wrap up today's episode, I want to thank all of you for joining me on this journey. I'm grateful for each and every one of you who takes the time to watch and engage. If you found value in our content, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, give us a thumbs up, give us a like and subscribe. It helps more innovators like you discover these concepts. It's our collective way to pay it forward. Don't forget to tap the notification bell so you don't miss an episode. For those who want to go deeper with these concepts of questions and their role in innovation and creativity, you can check out my book, Beyond the Obvious, which is all about question methodologies in innovation. The book has been out for quite some time, but you can get it on Amazon and ebooks and audiobooks. It's all over the place. The other is, and I talked about this before, is the Killer Question Card Deck. Killer Question Card Deck has like 46, 47 questions on the front. On the back side of the cards are what we call sparking questions. These are the questions that you can use with yourself, with your teams. You can shuffle them out and assign questions. There's all kinds of different ways to use this. You can find both the book and the Killer Question Card Deck over at our store, which is at innovation.tools. Innovation.tools. Also, just to make it clear, 100% of the profits from the store are donated to charity. And you'll find the link in the description below. Have you used any questioning approaches that we've been talking about for 20 years on this show? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments below as we go through. This is volume 1 of the questions. I keep getting asked about, when is volume 2 going to come out? I'm just starting to think about what a volume 2 set of questions would look like. So put your questions, the questions you found most powerful, in the questions below. Because your stories inspire this community, helps us grow, and can also, you may find the question you submit into the next edition of the card deck. And speaking of community, a special shout out to our Patreon patrons and paid subscribers on Substack who support the channel, and they get exclusive access to special content and they get exclusive live streams. If you're interested in joining, become a supporter over at Patreon and Substack. The links are in the show notes or in the description below. Remember, the quality of your innovation is directly proportional to the quality of the questions you are asking. One powerful question can change everything. Until next week, keep questioning, keep creating, and keep pushing boundaries. I'm Phil McKinney, and as always, thank you for being part of this innovation journey. Bye-bye.
Podcasting nonstop since 2005, this has been the Killer Innovation Show on the Innovators Network.